morning, good evening, and probably late good evening to many of those who are watching from across the world. Thank you for joining us for this Chai and Just Chat. Our sponsor for this session is Vendorship Inc. and for other monthly sessions as well. So before we start, I do want to acknowledge the dire situation that is happening in India due to COVID-19. Many lives have been lost due to lack of resources. Can we just take a few seconds of silence and send positive vibes to those who are being impacted and traumatized in India? I just would like for us to take a few seconds of silence. Thank you for joining us. Let us continue to send them positive vibes and the strength and perseverance to go through what they're going through. Today's topic is child sexual abuse prevention. The wounded child, surviving adult, the healing heart. A word of caution: a discussion of sex abuse sometimes triggers reaction from victims. It could be emotional at times during the discussion today. Please take caution and stay strong during the entire discussion. You're welcome to log off if you're not able to continue to listen to the topic today. I want to say a few words before introduction of the panelists. Today, I speak to you as a survivor, not a victim. I dedicate this Chai and Just Chat session today to millions of moms and adults who are victims or survivors. I know what you've been through. I know it hurts deeply. I know because I've been there in the dark place of shame, fear, not knowing, broken relationships, the isolation, this low self-esteem, not able to trust, not able to lead a normal life or even a normal family life. I always asked why me, but then I realized the question was, why not me? I asked those perpetrators, how dare you? How dare you touch a child inappropriately and take away their livelihood, their childhoodness, take away their flourishing in life that they could have led differently? How dare you? I've dedicated my life to expose such beep beeps and tell the affected children's life and children, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Let's heal together and prevent other children to be touched inappropriately by the beep beeps. Thank you again for joining us. We have esteemed panelists today to speak to us about the realities, the unseen, the prevention, the protection, the laws and policies, and healing for all. Please take a couple of minutes to introduce yourself, panelists. I'll go name by name and I'll ask you specific questions apart from the introduction as well. And again, thank you for joining us on a Sunday morning. Hopefully you have your chai and water with you. I usually show off my cup of chai, but today I'm fasting, so I'm not able to show that. But hopefully you have, Nicole, I see you have your cup of joy. Enjoy. And then I would like to start with Ali Neal. Ali Neal is the co-founder and the executive director for Revved Up Kids. Ali, if you can introduce yourself for a minute. And then Ali and I go way back, probably 7-8 years, and we've continued to keep in touch. We bring just positive vibes to each other because we believe in what we are doing and act as mentors. She actually acts as a mentor to me. But then the other question I also want to ask you, Ali, after your introduction is, what was your first win that made you confident that you were doing the right thing? Go ahead, Ali.
So first, I'll just introduce Revved Up Kids. We are an Atlanta-based organization. For those of you in India, we are right near where Nazeera lives. And we are 100% focused on prevention training. We primarily are training children and teenagers to understand who sexual predators are and to give them, just to equip them to know what to do if they ever encounter a sexual predator. So we're focused on sexual abuse and sexual exploitation. That includes trafficking. But we primarily are of the mindset that most trafficking victims are sexually abused before they are trafficked. And therefore, if we can work to prevent the sexual abuse, we will ultimately be helping to prevent victims of trafficking as well. We train parents and we also train staff and volunteers in youth serving organizations. I am not a survivor of sexual abuse. I have such admiration for Nazeera and her passion for this issue, and her ability to overcome. I will say that I know that she was forever changed when she was sexually abused, but she's been strong and she's been able to overcome, and she has two beautiful daughters who have been through Revved Up Kids training when they were children, and I'm just so glad for my friendship with Nazeera. I was called by God to do this work, and it was a very clear call in the spring of 2009. So about 11 or 12 years ago, I can't do my math, 12 years ago now. And I have just followed that path faithfully. And we have been able to train almost 40,000 children since we started Revved Up Kids. So
Very nice. Is that what was your first win that allowed you to know that this is what you're called for?
you know, for me, every child we train is a win. Over the years, we've had a lot of times when people have circled back to us to say, we had a disclosure from your training and now this child is safe. Where parents have circled back and said, my child was able to avert a threatening situation because of your training. Where teenage girls have been able to escape attackers because of our training. So we're just really proud of that. We don't know which child we are protecting that is going to go on in their life to do wonderful and great things because they don't end up getting sexually abused. So for me, that's kind of where I hang my hat, that I just have to do the good work and trust that God is doing the good work with me.
Awesome, great. Next, we'll go to Namrata Karamchandani, all the way from Kolkata. Namrata, thank you for joining us on a Sunday, actually evening for you, 8 p.m. You are the director for Anahat for Change Foundation. If you can introduce yourself and what your foundation does, and if you can answer this question. Also, if you could improve the world by doing one thing, what would you choose to do? Namrata.
Thanks, Nazeera, for this invitation. And it's a great chance to meet such amazing people all over the world. And so I belong to a social research background. For past 12 years, I had been doing analysis, data, survey, social issues, all these things. So 3 years back, I started my NGO. It's called Anahat. Anahat for Change Foundation works for two, three causes mainly. But one of our flagship program, with which we started, was prevention of child sexual abuse. And this is why, if you may ask, this was because I myself am a child sexual abuse survivor, and also my co-founder is. So this topic was always close to our heart. So when we decided to start something for the society, uh, this topic has to be was like in the forefront. So we started with that aim to save every child, each and every child whom we come across in whatever way possible. Very passionately, we started this organization, and this is a group of very young people who are running this organization currently. And quite similar to Revved Up Kids, we also do prevention programs mainly. We are into prevention, and we take awareness sessions, workshops with children's parents, caregivers, teachers, non-teaching staffs, whoever possible, mostly in underprivileged schools where they do not have any concept of whatsoever it is. So mostly in these type of setups, in these type of communities, with the parents and with the childrens and with like whoever we get. So we do sessions with them, we do workshops with them, and yes, we also have like as Neil said, we have disclosures in our sessions, and then we are really proud, like after disclosure we are trying to, like we are able to help that child out. And many times after our sessions, like parents come up and say ki, because of your sessions now we know the truth, now we can save our child. And this was like, these are all our blessed moments which we had received in our course of work.
Very nice.
So
If
that's
you
how
could
it is.
if you could improve the world by doing one thing, what would it be, Namrata?
uh, I could improve the world by just eliminating this crime from the very root, making aware each and every child aware, each and every parents aware.
Very nice. Thank you, Namrata. We wish you all the best and continue to put hope in those small young minds. And Nicole X is all the way from the dining room of in New Jersey in her home. Thank you for joining us, Nicole.
Thank
You are
you.
the World Childhood. You are the director of the World Childhood Foundation USA. And if you can tell us more about yourself and the foundation, and also answer the question, when were you the happiest?
Okay. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much, Nazeera, for having me participate. I'm Nicole Epps. I'm the executive director of the World Childhood Foundation USA, or Childhood USA. We are a foundation that was founded by Her Majesty Queen Sylvia of Sweden over 22 years ago. And our mission is to help develop solutions to end child sexual abuse, exploitation, and violence across the globe. So we have offices in the United States, Germany, Brazil, and Sweden. And so we act as a funder where we support innovative grassroots organizations that are preventative in their focus and or provide direct services and reintegration. And additionally, we support policy and research in the United States, as well as advocacy and awareness building, because as everyone on this panel knows, abuse thrives in silence. So we want to provide parents, all responsible adults, with the knowledge and the skills to have those conversations within their communities, which is why we take a lot of our work in this year in focusing on community engagement. So taking those recommendations that we've learned and working within communities, because we believe fundamentally that we all want to keep our children safe. We just need the tools. And so that's a little bit about the work that we are doing here on the ground. And the time that I was the happiest.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's Sunday morning, so maybe I also need coffee and chai. But I think I'm really just the happiest when I have 11-and-a-half-year-old daughter who is actively a tween going on 27. So those moments when I just catch her being really happy and she's not even noticing that I'm seeing her, those are my happiest moments. Or also when she's just off her iPad, because it's so much. But thank you again for having me. And it's a pleasure meeting all of you.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Sangeeta Pant is also joining us all the way from Mumbai. Sangeeta, thank you for joining us. You're a music composer. You're also a songwriter for a well-known song that has been out in YouTube, which is called I Won't Be Broken. And you believe in bringing awareness to prevent sexual violence. And Sangeeta, if you can introduce yourself, and also if you can answer this question, if you were to write a book about yourself, how would you name it?
Uh, Thanks, Nazeera. First of all, I'm really honored to be here among such an esteemed panel and dedicated to such a noble work. As you have already introduced, I'm a music composer. I'm a singer and songwriter, and I have been composing independent music and for Hindi films, which is popularly known as Bollywood in the West. and and I'm also on the Music Composers Panel of India and the women section. It is to bring up more women into this field of music composing, which is rather untouched in India still. So we are working towards having more and more women into this field, encouraging them and inspiring them. Yes, so you know, when I used to see that, whenever there was a death of a rape victim in India or even in the world, the people are up against it, and suddenly they become, they are having candle marches against it, and they're protesting. That used to get me thinking, why do we always protest when there is a death has taken place? Why can't we? Do we ever give a thought to people who have gone through it and who are still surviving, and what are they going through? That got me thinking, and as a music composer, I felt, though my main job, of course, is entertainment, but I thought if through my entertainment field, I can bring some awareness into what is the impact of sexual assault on the mental health of a rape survivor. Not someone who has died, but someone who's still alive. Can we do something about that? So I felt that I also had some kind of a social responsibility towards this. And I wrote a song, and we did it in two languages. One is Hindi, which is the language of India, and one in English to read, because rape is a global issue. It is not restricted to India or any other country. So we decided to do it in English also for a wider reach. And in fact, today only we got the news that our Hindi version has got the Best Music Video Award in the Indo-French Music Video Festival. So
Congratulations.
thank you. So yeah, so this is about the song "I Won't Be Broken." It actually is about the entire gamut of emotions that a rape survivor goes through, from depression to even suicidal tendencies to the memories haunting, and then coming out of it. It is not just about the negative side of it, but also coming out of it and taking a decision to do something about this malady, which is which has kind of taken over the world. So this is what the song is about. And yeah, sorry, what was the question,
The
Nazeera?
question, so I am going to play the song a little bit later towards the middle
Yes.
of our session. And I do have Ali Neal's Revved Up Kids session, YouTube session. So I'll play that for 2 or 3 minutes as well. So I have those two just in between if you all want to get up and take a break. But the question for you was, if you were to write a book about yourself, what would you name it?
Okay, so my name Sangeeta is actually Hindi of music. So I think that kind of describes me. So I would go with music and me, probably.
Very nice. Very, very well put. Thank you for joining us this
Thank you.
evening from India. Balaji, let's go to you. You are a TEDx speaker, and we just learned we both are from Tamil Nadu. So, wow, that's, such a small world. And you are also tell us about you, introduce yourself further. And the question I have for you, an additional question, Balaji, is who's someone you admire or respect, and why?
Okay, there are so many people though, but that's a very challenging question. But of course, I'll try to answer this. I'll try my best. So, hi everyone, I'm Balaji, and of course, as Nazeera said, I'm a TEDx speaker, and of course, I identify myself as a gender fluid homosexual person. Yes, I'm gay, and I'm not at all ashamed to say this word, because being gay is beautiful. Everyone is beautiful in their own way, but I don't shy away to call myself an out and proud gay. And apart from that, of course, I'm a child sexual abuse survivor. I was sexually abused when I was in class third. My childhood was almost a mess, where people, where people expect that their childhood phase should be happier. That was the phase where I was, sexually abused by my neighbor, by my own cousin, and by so many other people in my school. I was bullied because that time I was trying to figure out what am I? Am I gay? Am I gender fluid? Am I transgender? It was very difficult for me. And when I came out I was, of course, bullied each and every day. And, I'm sorry I have to say this. I think I tried taking my own life. And because I lost hopes, I said, life is being very tough to me. Let's end this life. And thankfully, one of my friend, college friend, she taught me the meaning of being yourself. So that's what I always, tell my kids also wherever I go take workshops and all, schools and colleges. So I go and I kind of, use my story as a mode to reach out to those people who are going through this terrible phase. And I tell them you should actually remember three things in your life. That is I, me, myself. I, as a person, matter a lot. Me, my sexuality matters a lot, whatever I am, whether I'm bi, straight, gender fluid, whatever I am. And myself, my happiness matters a lot. More than anything else, your happiness matters so much, right? And we have one life, we have come in this life to achieve with a purpose. So that's what we all are doing, so my only purpose is to be happy, to spread happiness, to spread as much as love as I can, and make everyone happy, and to remove this word called homophobia, which has been terrible for me in my case, and remove hatred, I would say, and just spread love as much as I can, rainbow love.
Very
And
nice.
yes. And the person whom I admire the most, well, there are so many people, because as I've been telling this everywhere, that my life has been a roller coaster ride. Since the day I was sexually abused, I came out of the closet, because two things, guys, happening at the same time was very challenging. I was sexually abused. I was trying to come out. When I came out to my parents, my mom was not accepting. Thankfully, my parents took 7 years to accept my sexuality, and now my mom is like, my neighbors keep asking me that, when is your son getting married? And then my mom openly tells them that my son is gay and I'm looking for a guy for him. So, and that's the kind of, her confidence is like something I appreciate. And the person, and this one specific person, I think, whom I admire in my life is this celebrity makeup artist, Namrata Soni. She's a Bollywood celebrity makeup artist. And the reason why I admire the most is because when I came out as gay, of course, homosexual, still I was somewhere stuck, with my identity. I was trying to figure out that I'm more feminine, like, I feel like dressing up like a girl, but still I was not, 100% sure that something was bothering me. And so I remember there was this event in Delhi, I think 2 years back, and I went there to attend, and I saw this lady, Namrata Soni, there, and she was doing this makeup masterclass, and I was like, let's go and attend this. Let's see what it is all about. I had no idea about makeup, and under say I was like, having this this thing, I really want to do makeup. So let's see how what she teaches, what is makeup all about. And when I saw her, so something which stuck my mind is like, if she can do, why can't I? And then I, identified this. Then there is this gender fluidity thing came up. Then of course I figured out, okay, I'm more comfortable being feminine, but still people often get confused and ask me that, are you a transgender? But no, I'm not transgender, and that's the difference. So that's where awareness is very important, and that's what I'm doing right now, is to break the gender stereotyping and to break that gender conditioning set by society. So you often people saying that only men can go to gym, only women can wear pink color clothes, only women can apply costumes, cosmetics. Men can't do anything. Men can't play with dolls and all that. That's what our parents teach us, right? So my main motto is to break that gender stereotyping and tell people to be themselves, whatever they are, and also to the parents. My only message has been, don't let your child do something which society approves. Let your child do something which they approve, because at the end of the day, if your child is happy, automatically you will be also happy. And that's what my motto has been, and that's what I've been doing so far. Yeah.
Very well said. And Balaji, you're one person who calls spade a spade, and I appreciate you for that. Thank you for joining
Thank
us
you.
today.
Thank you so much.
Next, we have Heather Stockdale. Heather is the Director of Operations with Street Grace. I used to work with Street Grace as a partnering organization when I used to be in the county, and they used to do a wonderful job, especially about commercial child sexual exploitation prevention. So Heather, thank you for joining us on a Sunday morning. And if you can introduce yourself and what Street Grace does, and also if you can answer this question, what is your greatest fear? How do you manage fear in general?
That's good. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you to Nazeera for pulling this panel together. And I'm honored to be sitting on with such esteemed panelists. And after Balaji, I was really hoping I wasn't going to have to follow you after that amazing story. I love that.
Thank you.
So thanks for having me here this morning. So Street Grace is an organization, and our mission is to eradicate the commercial sexual exploitation of children. And so we do that in 4 different ways. We focus on prevention, like so many other panelists on here, because we recognize that we could continue serving victims, but if we don't do something to prevent commercial sexual exploitation and child sexual abuse before it occurs, we'll never move the needle and eradicate this issue. So we focus on prevention by working with schools and working with children, similar to Ali, going in and teaching them and equipping them with the tools to know what to look for and how to resist and run away and not run away from it, and go to a healthy adult who can help them. And then we also focus on prevention. That's our protection. That's our second pillar. And so this is working directly with survivors of commercial sexual exploitation. And we work with them to wrap services around them to make sure that they are getting all of the services that they need. And we walk alongside of them in their journey. Next, our third pillar, we focus on policy. So this is advocating for laws that will protect children, that will serve survivors well, and that also will focus on the crime aspect. So going after the perpetrators, those buyers and sellers of children for sex. And then lastly, we do something called pursuit. And Nazeera and I were previously talking about the role of the buyer before this started. And so pursuit is all about focusing on the buyers. And so similar to prevention, we will continue to just focus on protection and
Okay. So Heather, you
an artificial intelligence bot that intercepts buyers online trying to purchase sex with children. So that's the last area that we work on. And then the question for me was, what is my greatest fear and how do I manage fear? So how I manage fear, I think, is using self-care techniques. I think all of us in this field have seen some pretty horrible things that could keep us up at night and just make us fearful for the state of our society. And so for me, it's prayer and mindfulness and other self-care techniques that help me keep boundaries with my work. Although I would say it's pretty impossible to not bring this kind of work home with you, with your family, but that's how I manage it. And then what is my greatest fear? I guess I would say not, and I mean, in terms of this work too, I guess it's scary for me to think about not ending this and what will happen for future generations if we don't do our job. And then of course, I'm always fearful with all the children that I've worked with. You know, you think of your own children and you want to do everything that you can to prevent your own children from suffering in this way and from being traumatized in this way.
Very well said. Very well said, Heather. We used to work with the director of Street Grace, and Ali, I don't know if you know this, but just wanted to bring it out before our session. And we've left the best for the last with Asha. So just Asha, give me 1 second to mention this. Heather, we did a survey along with another organization. The name doesn't come up to me right now, but as a coalition, they also did a survey, and around they set up a fake number for getting a child, to get those services, and children, like for children, for sex. And around 10, I think in 3 months, 10,000 calls were made. No, maybe more than 10,000 calls were made. And when they analyzed that data further, where this number was coming from, and this was a fraud number they had set up, more than 70 to 80% of these numbers were professionals with ties who were looking for children for sex. Lawyers, judges, doctors. And so just wanted to know the truth, for the society to know the truth, that it's not just those we have stereotyped, oh, they could be this. It's someone who's even unseen and you would never realize who they could be. So I wanted to bring that up as well. So Asha, Lightbearer, thank you for your patience. As I mentioned, your last name defines who you really are. You are the founder and survivor. You're the founder for Survivors Speak Art blog and also Help for Survivors blog. You also used to run the Fiona Project, maybe partly now. If you can tell us and introduce yourself and what you do, and also if you can answer the question, what does life mean to you?
You're going to have to remind me of the question because
my
memory is so terrible.
I'll remind you.
I don't remember.
I'll remind you.
Yeah. For me, I'm just going to start here. I am a creative. So Sangeeta, I'm listening to you talk and I'm like, oh, I can get that because my story kind of mirrors yours in how my music and arts came into this mission. I'm a child sexual abuse survivor, but I did not remember until I was like 40. And so my whole life I went through, suicidal thoughts are not rare, I don't think, among us. Depression is not unknown to us. And I went through most of my life asking, what is wrong with me? Nothing looks wrong on the outside. So what is wrong with me? And then when I was about 40, I had some flashbacks of and still some of mine was young enough that it was, I don't know if you've ever heard of The Body Remembers, but it's like I relived. It was absolutely terrifying. Luckily, I have a wonderful partner who's very forgiving and didn't run away as I'm going through what looks like The Exorcist. But my body remembered. And so I know exactly what happened when I was like 2. And then I had some flashbacks of when I was older, and they only creep in when I put down my guard and I felt really calm and safe and comfortable. It's like, see, nothing happened. And then boom, it's like, okay, maybe something did happen. And, for me, what was really life-changing was I finally had to admit when I had this major breakdown one day that, okay, something happened. And when I started embracing that and working through that, I got better, So even though I don't have this lifelong memory, somewhere in there it was buried. So I was working on, once I had embraced that, it took me a long time just to say I'm a survivor because I felt like a fraud. But once I embraced that, things start to change. And Nazeera, we've talked about this. I use not talk therapy. I use alternative modalities, alchemical hypnosis, and reflexology really released a lot of the trauma in my body and stuff like that. So as I'm working through all this stuff, I woke up, I'm a musician. I woke up with this image in my mind of this little girl holding her dad's hands, starting to walk, and this song line in my mind. So I get music when I'm dreaming, and then I run to my keyboard and I write it down really quick before I forget it. And as I started writing, it was a song called Welcome Home, Fiona. And I remember I got to the end of the first verse and I just fell apart because I did not know what it was about until it just came through. And so the beginning of my project was, I knew because I'd seen the images, this was a video, and it was mine to do. It was a gift. It was mine to do. And so I made, it's called Welcome Home, Fiona. And I got the most amazing support with volunteers. And from there, it's been a process. But we made the video. We were acknowledged and with an award a few years back, and we did some grants. We raised some money. Allie's foundation got one of our grants. They're not huge, but it was still fun. And so from there, I realized, how do you get the message out to people? Because people don't have the information. They don't want to talk about it. They don't believe it's real. They don't think it's really happening, or it could never happen to them. But musicians have an amazing way of tackling difficult concepts and difficult talks and putting it out there. And it's very safe for listeners, because, you know, you're not in a state of defense or denial. It's just part of my shtick. You know, I go out and I do the song that's about recovering and having a happy life afterwards. I do the song about the abuse and what that looks like. And it sounds, I can't wait to watch yours, Sangeeta, because it sounds very similar. And so that was the start of the Fiona Project. It still does exist. I don't put a lot of time into it. Basically, anybody who wants to be a partner, I'm grateful. I give them tools. I give them a little card for 7 steps to prevention. I ask them to talk about it from their heart and why it's important to them, and make it known from their platform. So musicians and artists. And that's how the arts blog came about, because as survivors, you know, when I went looking, I was so desperate. Survivors didn't have information available. It was like, oh, here's all the bad stuff, and there's 8,000 white papers and pages, and I was a wreck. And it's like, I need something simple, easy, that treats me like a real person, a healthy person. And so I created helpforsurvivors.org as the sister of the Fiona. And because I'm a creative, I'm a healer, I'm a musician, and all that stuff, it is really focused on providing simple, easy support and resources for people in a way that you can navigate simply on the page, and give survivors their voice, because they can participate in the arts blog and make submissions. So either of those sites, if you're a survivor, please check out thefionaproject.org or helpforsurvivors.org if you're a creative, especially, because you can submit your work and we'll publish it for you, which gives a voice that you've never had. So that was my mission with the music, to give people a voice that they hadn't had, and to I do energy healing. So I can see now how it all wraps together. And I see stuff like, so this is weird, but I see stuff on people, on survivors. There's energetic, negative. I've seen some crazy, gross things that are freaky, and the people can feel them, but they can't see them, and they don't know they're there. And so I'll just say, for me, I feel like it's a gift, and that's my gift, that I can work with people. I can see the unseen energetically and talk to them. And one of the greatest gifts is somebody said this already, when a survivor comes up after you've performed and they have no words and they just cry and they hug you because they know you saw them. It's a huge gift. That's a gift to me. And I feel like it helps others. And I forget.
Thank you. Your question, Asha, is what does life mean to you?
I think it means whatever you make it mean. And I lost that for a long time. Like Balaji, I felt lost and didn't want to be here. Life was a cruel joke. And, what I teach through my Totally Witch and stuff, my healing stuff, is empowerment. And when you choose to be content and you choose to do the hard work and whatever it takes to walk through the fear and show up and prove that you're okay on the other side, and get grounded and get centered, that it's your choice. So for me, life means right now, it means being happy, being healthy, being content, being connected, drawing good boundaries, and having a great relationship with an amazing person, my partner.
Very nice. Asha, thank you. And you brought a very important subject, that you realized that at 40, what had happened to you, and the same thing happened to me. And I started researching. And that's the norm, it seems, because by 40, we've settled with kids or family or however that has gone, well or bad or ugly, good. And then our brains start thinking back, because now we're relaxed, and our brain cells starts going back to like when we're 5 and 6. And then your life starts going into chaos. So I feel like I've gone through exactly what you went through right after 40, figuring out why, what, when, how. And the best part was the healing process, because had I not healed, I would have continued to remain lost. Yeah. And the reason I had my kids, and just right after that, I had my kids enrolled in Revved Up Kids, and I feel better that they've taken that course for an entire day. So thank you, Ali and Namrata, for what you all do. Let's go to one of the questions. Nicole, the first question is for you. Let's just distinguish between sexual assault, right? Probably I would think sexual assault is the umbrella term that's used, any form of unwanted sexual contact, including fondling, touching, or groping, or, of the private parts, or the clothing covering them. It also includes rape. So that's the entire thing you're discussing, the sexual assault, right? And it can come under, and the things that can come under is the child sexual abuse or sexual violence, which is rape in certain forms. Anyway, whatever we call it, it's like an elephant in the living room that no one wants to talk about. Yeah, and it is impossible to ignore, though. And so what happens for the people who are affected have adverse physical or cognitive, emotional or social impact that continues for survivors for many, 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 many years. Yeah. So the question for you is also sexual violence is a complex issue, but let me ask you the question. What does sexual violence look like among the people you serve or the organizations that you serve, who serve such survivors or victims? Who is victimized and who commits the sexual violence, and why does it happen? How much is it a problem in our communities? I will go through specific stats, but if you can just tell us overall.
Sure. So I think the answer is, who does it look like? I think for all of our listeners, hold up a mirror and it looks like all of us. So sexual abuse, sexual violence, there is no race, there's no ethnicity, there's no sexual orientation. It is us. And when I receive that question, I think people are often shocked. I spent over a decade working in anti-trafficking, and there, I believe there is this desire to have an other, right? Like, this doesn't happen where I am. These are these other people, and it's comforting, right? But the reality is, no, it's us, okay? So it looks like our children, it looks like our friends, it looks like our family members. The other part that I'd like to say is that 90% of our survivors of child sexual abuse know they're offenders. Okay, so this narrative that it is a stranger, it is unknown. No, the reality is they are trusted family and friends, and they are in our families. And the first step, I think, in prevention is really identifying who is around your children and why are they around your children, and asking those questions. I would make the argument in the work that we've done, we say in the US, by the time a child is 18 years old, 1 in 5 girls, 1 in 20 boys. And those are only the statistics of children and adults who've disclosed. But we know that most children, Asha and Nazeera, as you've so eloquently and courageously shared, these are disclosures in adulthood. So I think the numbers are much higher. I think that people don't speak about that. I think when we talk about mental health challenges, we talk about substance misuse disorder. Those are just actions to cope with trauma. So for me, I fundamentally believe that we are survivors ourselves, or we are interacting on a daily basis and having relationships with people who have unhealed trauma. So I think, to go very back to the question you asked me, Nazeera, it's us, and I feel in the United States, which is where I'm based currently, we say that we care about our children, right? We say that they're the most vulnerable in society and that we really care. And yet our children continue to be abused. And yet, there are amazing preventative programs that you've shared that are going into our schools. And yet we put the responsibility on children to disclose, to have these conversations, to say no. And I'm not saying that education is not important. Absolutely. But if we look at the Me Too movement globally, we've had adult women who are at the pinnacle of success, who had difficulty saying no, or I feel uncomfortable, this shouldn't be happening. And yet we expect a 5-year-old to say no to, and I'm being very gendered here. We know this is, that offenders are male and female, but we expect them to say no to a family member that they love, that they care about, who may or may not be, economically caring for their families, and we expect that. So what I would say is, there is no child sexual abuse survivor. It would be easier if we had that, but we don't. But what we do have an obligation as adults who care about children, who, and I really say, if we really want to protect our children and we want to have healthy adults who are not dealing with trauma and creating multi-generational trauma because they've not been able to process and do the work that's needed, then we need to start at a very young age. And that includes giving parents and adults the tools and the skills to identify, to react responsibly to disclosures of abuse. And then I think we really need to focus on holistic integration, because we believe that abuse is a chapter in someone's life. It doesn't define your book. It's a chapter, but it becomes your whole book when we're not having those conversations.
Definitely. Thank you so much for bringing up very important points, Nicole. Ali, this question is for you, and I might want quickly Namrata to follow you on that question as well from her standpoint from way back in India. So Ali, we don't do a good job talking to our parents about, or to our children to talk to kids about sexual violence or sexual health, either as parents or grandparents, right? And we can't just tell kids that what we don't want them to do. We have to tell them what's good and positive and healthy, right? And so, of course, schools play an important role, a significant role. And every child should have the opportunity to have a discussion, of course, with a trusted adult, right? About what is safe touch, unsafe touch. So sometimes parents and grandparents can do through an illustration. We don't know, but some of the questions that many attendees have asked is, how do we actually start talking to children about this? You're on mute, Ali.
Yep, I'm unmuting. And so I agree wholeheartedly with everything Nicole said about the importance of prevention and about the importance of equipping adults to be better protectors. But our mindset and our mission is the easiest target for a predator is a child who doesn't know predators exist. And that's why this conversation is unbelievably important from a very young age. And so we have found in our years of training people, parents are typically terrified of this dialogue. They have no idea what to say, when to say it, or how to say it. And their fear is rooted in, I don't want to scare my child. They're so frozen with fear about the possibility that this would happen to their child that they can't even fathom having the conversation with their child. So our training for the parents is, here's what to say and when to say it. Here's what's age appropriate. Here's the kind of things your child is developmentally going to be thinking about at different ages and getting into, and how you want to be their go-to person for answers about things of a sexual nature. We've got a lot of families where any discussion of anything sexual, including naming the body parts, is complete taboo. And we have to get over that. We need to say penis. We need to say vagina or vulva. We need to talk about that and be comfortable with that, so that our children aren't embarrassed or afraid to discuss it if it ever happens. I do believe teaching the children what's safe and unsafe is critically important. Telling them, hey, there's people out there that do these things. And if anybody ever tried to do that to you, it's not okay. And if it happened, we need you to tell, you need to come and tell me so that I can help you. Because most of the time, and I would suspect that most of the survivors in this panel and probably the viewers, if you are a child victim of sexual abuse, that perpetrator is making you think, A, it's your fault, B, it's okay, C, it's our secret, D, if you tell anybody, I'm going to harm you or harm them. And if you don't sort of break all that down for the child and help them understand, hey, these are just flat out lies that this person is telling, even if they're really scary lies, it's a lie and lies aren't true and you need to tell, and just kind of equipping them to be able to respond instead of just receiving this abuse because this is an authority figure or somebody with more power than them, and then just not having any way to do anything about it.
So is it okay for grandparents to start such conversations as well?
Of course. I think, we talk about from a young age, when you're naming the body parts, you don't come up with nicknames for those body parts. That attaches shame. That can delay a disclosure. So that's like the first thing you do from little itty bitty children is name the body parts the right parts and be okay with that. When your child comes to you with a question of a sexual nature, you don't ever say you're too young to know that, because guess what? They're going to get an answer somewhere. And if that means they're ending up on the internet with that question, or they're ending up having some adult mentor in their life who wants to be their sexual teacher, that's not what you want as a parent. So you've just got to create this comfortable dialogue from the beginning about personal safety, about personal boundaries. Also, having parents let kids control who touches them, like from a very young age. You need to make sure that your child knows this is my space and nobody's allowed to touch it without my permission. So we don't force people to hug the child. We should always let the child initiate the physical contact. I'm a little bit, I don't know. I find a lot of church environments have gone like a far opposite direction with any kind of physical touch. And I understand the mindset of that just for overall safety. But sometimes a kid just needs a hug from an adult mentor. And I never want that to be something that's not okay. I think if we as adults get into a mindset of let the child initiate the contact, let the child be comfortable with the contact. It's okay to hug a child. It should never be not okay to hug a child. It's just we got to teach the child where that line of demarcation is between appropriate and inappropriate, and that's about the child feeling okay with it. Does that make sense? Like
Yes.
Trusting instinct and trusting your gut and trusting those feelings is another piece of our training for the children. Like if you're feeling scared or nervous about somebody, even if it's someone you know, it's time to create some distance, get away, go to other people where you feel safe. So
Thank you.
I mean, there's so many things, and then there's structured trainings. I'm sure most everybody on the panel has heard of the Darkness to Light Stewards of Children training. So we use that primarily more for youth serving staff and volunteers more than parents. Our parent training is a little bit different because it's more of nuts and bolts of. But yeah, there's just good trainings out there, and I think all adults need to take advantage of those and learn whatever you can.
Definitely, Ali. Thank you so much. I learned a lot taking your program and the kids taking the program. I think after that, my younger child was like, "Mom, don't ask me to hug or anyone," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that they're just like our friends when we hug, just a normal hug." And then I'm like, I was so comfortable that she was able to say that to me, and I respected, and I never asked my kids to hug anyone at all from then. So, Namrata, let's go back. I have another question for you, but I also want you to add on to the previous question, especially our Indian parents, right? And us, we're still in this generation, Namrata, we feel uncomfortable or don't know where to begin the conversation. I mean, I don't even know what to say to those parts in Tamil or in our own language. And so how do you, so how does what Ali mentioned, is that comfortable zone for our parents back in India? That's one of my question. Or how should they start these conversations? The other question I have is the risk factors. In any group of 10 or more people, we know there's likely one person who has been victimized sexually. The statistic speaks, right? As a child or a spouse or a victim of date rape, in many ways. Which factors put children at risk for one or more of these abuses? Or are there certain factors that result in abuse? How do we identify those families at risk beforehand?
Thanks, Nazeera, for the question, and thanks, Ali, for the beautiful input. Uh, I will say quite similar to Ali. Yes, in India, the terminology is quite tabooed, I will say, like the naming of the private parts. It has, for generations, people like our grandparents, like even in my generation, other mothers have seen giving strange names to the body parts, strange terminologies. And whenever I teach them in our sessions to call what is it, what, like call a penis, to call a vagina, what, like, don't try to give names to those private parts. They always say ki, okay, then it's okay for us if we don't give names, but what if the child says this in front of a group of people or in front of everybody? What kind of shame it will bring to a society? But like these small things needs to be addressed. Like a child also needs privacy. For example, we always think a small child, for example, some child comes to your home in the arm of his or her caregiver. What we do, like we go straight away, snatch the child and take into our arms. We don't even care for permissions or something. A child has no boundary, easily accessible, nothing, nobody will say anything, you just go and hug him. For many children, I see, like for my kids also, if somebody insists a kiss, a child has to give that kiss. If anybody says no, then the parents sometimes says ki, okay, that person is wanting a kiss from you, so please give that kiss. But here in this point, respecting a child's no is very important. By respecting the child's no, you are imbibing a confidence in him, ki that I can say no to whoever I can, be it my aunt, be it my grandfather, be it my father, anybody. So these small things need to be addressed, like from the very beginning. Like in our Indian society, when sometimes we do force feeding, even the child doesn't want to eat, we force feed him by letting him watch some movies, some mobile, something. So here we are, like crossing the boundary. Here we are not respecting his no. He is saying no, but we are not respecting it. So, similarly, in many cases, we do not respect the child's no. We always think that a child can't have a mind of its own. How much a child will eat, we parents will decide. When the child will sleep, we parents will decide. Or like what the child will do, like whatever feelings, behavior, all we parents will decide. So these things has to be stopped. A child is also another separate individual. You have to see a child as like that. You have to teach a child privacy from the very beginning. You have to tell him that these are your private parts and there is a private place in your house. A private place can be a bathroom, a private place can be your bedroom, but you can touch your private parts where nobody is going to come. Similarly, your mother, your father all have their private spaces, so they have to identify those private spaces first. Otherwise, what will happen? A child will not understand that these are things which you have to do it in private. They will come in front of everybody, like opening a towel or something. Like they do not have that mind, no. So they will do like that. They will not understand this. I have to pee in my bathroom. I don't open my pant in front of everybody. So these things have to be trained from very beginning, and the parents should train them in simple language. Okay, you don't have to give vocabularies. Okay, you don't have to give dictionary explanations, big explanation. Just small terminologies. You don't have to go very deep in it. Like for example, my son is 3.5 years old. Okay, I have twins. They're 3.5 years old. So they know what period is. For example, sometimes they found out something in my, they found out a cup in my bathroom and have asked me, "Ki mama, what is this?" So I've told him, "Ki beta, this is a cup. This is the used for mama's period." So they know period. What is period, mama? It's a kind of, it's blood coming out from the body. So they ask you, "Oh, blood." They don't have that vision that blood can hurt and all. So that's okay for them. So if I don't answer them, they will go to somebody else, and preferably that person will give him wrong answer. So I have to be the person to give him the correct answer, correct terminologies for everything. This is what also we teach the parents in session, to be free with their children, to talk freely with their children. And ironically, in these sessions, when we invite both parents, mother and father, we find like mostly the mothers are present, the fathers are not there. Very rare fathers come up in those sessions. They don't attend, they don't want to attend, or I don't know, they think that it's mother will handle. But it's very important for both the parents to come up and learn these things, and to understand these things, and about these things with their children very freely, and from the very beginning, from 6 months, I will tell you, to be free. Then the point will not come where they will not understand. They has to understand their sexual health, sexual, like whatever, like around sexuality first. Then they will understand that somebody who is doing something wrong by touching some inappropriate parts is doing wrong. Otherwise, the child becomes very confused. Ki what has happened to him? So these things, this conversation should begin from the very beginning, which is still now very like less seen in Indian society, but gradually we hope very much that society will improve. Let's see what comes in.
Very well said. A great lesson for the South Asian parents, Namrata. There are there any risk factors specifically in families where child sexual abuse happens? Is that risk factors findable beforehand?
Very clearly, one of the panelists here said, I forgot the name, who told, we have to identify the people who are around us. For a child, to prevent a child sexual abuse, we have to identify the people, the surroundings, who is who around us. So that is very necessary step, which we do in our sessions also, to identify who is who, and also we ask the child to draw them in certain way. We use art in a very form in our workshops to get their feelings outside. So we do that exercise, so that we play with colors, we play with craft, so that if something is there, it comes up. And also we tell parents also to keep a watch and to be free and to respect whatever the child says. Like whoever is around is not, if the child says something against somebody, the parent should notice. And the parent, in Indian case, mostly we have seen, since we mostly work with the underprivileged community, we mostly see if that person, the perpetrator, is from a higher status, from in monetary respect. What happens, though after knowing the case, the mother remains silent, because the family is getting some kind of monetary help from that person maybe. So the mother remains silent, the family remains silent. So these are the sad things we have noticed, where after repeated like interventions, something we could do. So
Definitely.
these are the small things we could notice.
Definitely, Namrata, it does fall on us. Ali, you've raised your hand. Go ahead, and then I'm coming to you, Balaji.
I just wanted to add to that. We always tell parents two things regarding perpetrators that might be in their space. Be really tuned in to anybody who seems to be taking an extreme interest in your child, especially an adult or an older teen. Like, just, that's not normal for somebody outside of your child's inner circle to be taking an extreme interest, or even in their inner circle. You've got to be somewhat careful, especially wanting to spend a lot of time alone with your child. And then the other thing that we talk to parents about is, it just totally slipped my mind. Oh.
We'll come back to you.
Oh
we have an hour and a half, probably more. Ali, it happens. But thank you. So please hold on to that thought, Ali, or write it down. We'll come back to you. So Balaji, before I ask a question, just wanted to quickly go through these statistics from the National Sexual Violence Resource Center. 1 in 3 women experience some sort of sexual violence in their lifetime. 1 in 6 men will experience some sort of contact sexual violence in their lifetime. 1 in 5 women will be raped in their lifetime. 1 in 71 men will be raped in their lifetime. Half of female survivors were raped by an intimate partner. Half of male survivors were raped by an acquaintance. And alarming number of these go unreported. Yeah. So Ali, you raised your hand. You remembered?
I got it. If your child suddenly loses interest in an activity that they previously loved, if your child suddenly is avoiding spending time with a person that they previously enjoyed spending time with, those are enormous red flags that something is going on or has happened. And that's a moment that you need to be digging deeper and figuring out, why is this happening?
Definitely. Thank you, Ali. Balaji, the next question is for you. I'm not talking about just the current times and news, but whenever you open, you watch news or newspaper or a talk show or, a movie, and we are always confronted with reports of sexual abuse in any forms. Yeah. And again, it's not surprising to say that it happens in churches or scouts, youth organizations, a trusted school teacher, an abusive parent or a controlling spouse, or a stranger in the neighborhood has done these, and so we know who the perpetrators could be, right? So my question to you is, can you tell us how this actually impacts? How do different types of abuse actually impact a child's development? And I don't want it in technical terms or in the physician's terms, but just in a normal life, what leads some individuals and families to benefit more, like for prevention and treatment program, or do all have access to these prevention programs? If so, why aren't we sending them, just like sending them to school? Unmute yourself, please.
Sorry. Very good question, Nazeera. So there is a myth actually which is attached to the society for long, that only girls can go through this, child sexual abuse thing, which I have seen for long. Many of when it has happened with me. So I specifically had this question in my mind, that when it comes to sexual abuse, when it comes to rape, it's why people only associate that specific term with girls. It can also happen with guys, which people don't want to talk about. So I want to share one of the incidents which happened with me in Delhi. I think 4 years back, I started my career in Delhi, and I was in Gurgaon, and there was this few, guys, after I was returning, I was coming back from work, and I was going to my house. So I was taking a walk, I always love, going for a walk, and, Delhi was like very windy, chilly weather, Delhi is known for winters. So I thought, well, let's walk, it was already 8:39 in the night. So I saw these group of guys, hitting me on my back, and they just ran away. They came by bike, and I was just talking to someone. They just came and they just hit me on my back and just moved. And I was very shocked that point of time. I was like, what was that? That was, I think, after so long. In class third. After so long that happened with me. And I was like, what is it? Why am I was shocked. I was freezed, And when I went to the police station, cops to complain about it, to raise a complaint about it. So the cops asked me, what it is about. So I told them that, there were a group of guys who were standing, who came by their bike, and they hit me on my back and they just ran away. So these police guys started laughing. They said, back means kahan pe, where in back. That's what someone said in the panel discussion also. It's very important to talk about your body parts. So I told them, and they started laughing, just like, ye aapke saath hua. And I'm sorry, I'm telling in Hindi. They said that, it happened with you. How come? How come it can happen with a guy? I mean, I have most of the cases where it has happened with girls, and happening with a guy is very weird. They were telling me that, I think, Balaji, there is something wrong with you as a person. They were pointing out my sexuality, my identity, and that's where I realized it's very, very important to talk about male sexual abuse, male rape also, which is actually happening in our country. So Nazeera, even in our community, every now and then people go through this child sexual abuse thing. Most of the people in our community have gone through this, but people don't want to talk about. Some people want to keep it, and especially in our case where we are already trying to come out of our express our sexual orientation, come out of the closet, and when these things happen, so parents don't want to talk about it. So that's where parents play a very important role. Somewhere I feel in India, parents are very dominating. Don't I mean no offense, they don't let their children talk about it. So whenever they see TV and all, when you see any intimate scenes coming in or anything related happening about sex, they're like, oh my god, this is happening, okay, switch off the TV. They immediately change the channel to news channel, or it has happened with me also. When I've gone to my relative's place, I mean, there was a movie, Bollywood movie, I don't remember, and there was, these actors were kissing, and suddenly they came, it's like, okay, don't see all this, please watch news channel. I mean, why you're supposed to, it's completely fine for that's where parents kind of also makes a mistake, that they don't want to talk about it, but they are very okay if something is going on with their child, but they don't talk about it, because in India, the word sex is very underestimated. People don't want to talk about it. If you go to broad countries, I mean, when I went to Germany, to study, few years back, people are very open there. I'm sorry, guys. That was my first international trip, and I saw gay couples kissing, lesbians kissing, and of course that was a bit Torah, this thing for me. But in India, it's kind of very conservative, still conservative. Sexual abuse is there, that's happening, but when it comes to LGBTIQ, when it comes to male sexual abuse, male rape, still people don't want to talk about it. People still don't want to talk about homosexuality as a whole. So they only think like homosexuality is like kind of there are so many things which exists in homosexuality. Again, as I said, male rape, child sexual abuse, male sexual abuse. So there are different kinds of abuse for which people don't want to talk about. So I think it's very, very important to create awareness in that space also. We always talk about rape. The first thing which comes into our mind, okay, that girl was raped. But last year, when one of our community member, went through, rape, sexual abuse, sorry, and it became like a entertainment news, all across social media. People started laughing. People started making fun of him, rather making fun, mass shaming that person who has actually done it. People were actually making fun of that person, that victim, who has been, he was criticized on the whole. So we somewhere need to, specifically in our country, need to have that awareness. I feel there is a lot of generation gap. That's where I think we have a long way. Yes, section 377 has been abolished, and we have got the consensual gay sex rights out there, but still there are so many things which we are expecting. We haven't got the right to marry. We haven't got the right to adopt children, in India. So there are so many things which we need to, create awareness. That that social perception has to change, which I think which will take a lot of time, and that's what we all are here to educate, to create awareness. Be it any generation, be it to our grandparents, be like a few years back when I was attending Delhi, LGBTQ queer pride parade. So there was this old man, 50-year-old man, 60-year-old man coming to me and asking me that, what are you guys doing? Why do I see two guys kissing out there? this is against our culture, this is against the laws of nature, so that's where there's a generation gap. We need to educate. We need, in terms of sexual rape also, we need to break that myth and tell people out there that even men can go through rape, even men can go through sexual abuse. When I went through it when I was in class third, I couldn't tell this to my parents. And there was a time when I started bleeding. I'm sorry, please stop me if you guys are feeling uncomfortable anywhere. When I started bleeding, I told my parents, like, okay, I'm bleeding. I think it's pretty painful out there. And my parents said it's because of the heat. Of course, they didn't know about it. I was not able to tell them properly because 3 years, Nazeera, I went through this: class third, class fourth, class fifth. Class third, of course, my neighbor, who sexually abused me. I'm sorry, class fourth, my cousins, raped me. Class fifth, class sixth, my schoolmates raped me. So 3 years consistently, you are going through that. And someday, when I broke down, when I lost hopes, as I told you, then when I started bleeding, I felt that pain in my body, and when I realized I can't take it. So I was about to talk about it. And when I wanted to talk about it, I think when I was in class 11th or class in 12th, that's where I gathered courage and I wanted to talk about it to my very own good friend who was friends with me for 10 years. I wanted to talk to him. I lost him. He disowned me. He said that I can't be friends with you, and my parents don't want you to come to my house because they feel being gay is like it's a communicable disease. Anyone can get it. So we can't have a person like you. And also, he's openly said this. You have been used by so many men out there. So I somewhere feel that you don't deserve to be in this society. It's better you die. That's what he told me. And imagine, I was already going through so many emotional trauma out there, trying to come out, and suddenly my friends left me. My relatives boycotted me. When my relatives got to know that I was sexually abused, rather blaming that person who actually did that, my relatives disowned me. He said, we don't need Bala in our family. We don't need a person like him because firstly, he's gay, he's gender fluid, whatever he is, but he's the cursed section of the society. And that's what I got to hear from my relatives in front of everyone. A person who lost everyone, but still, I don't know. I think it's because I'm a firm believer of God. Somewhere He gave me that courage. Somewhere He gave me that courage to fight with the society, to stand strong. And today I'm standing strong, and I have a job for myself. I'm heading a team. I am motivating people to come out. Whatever you are sexually abused, whatever you are you. Those people deserve to die, deserve to be sad, or whatever it is. I'm sorry, I should not use this word sad, die and all that, but they should deserve that. We don't, because it has happened to us and we deserve to be happy. And all I'm asking is just live and let us live. That's what, because a person who wanted friends at his tender age, who wanted friends, at his childhood age. As I've been saying this, my childhood has been a mess, and everyone's like, Bala, childhood is the phase where you cherish so many memories. But Nazeera, I have no memories to cherish. What will I cherish? That I was sexually abused in class third, fourth, fifth, and I was bullied in school days. Literally when I used to walk in my corridor, people used to wait inside the classroom, and they used to come out and they used to hoot saying, homo, 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 homo has come. Okay, and there were many people in my school. They misused me. They wanted to have sex with me. They used me. They used my innocence. They took me for granted. So a person who has seen so much in his life, I don't know how I'm living. I'm just living. That's it. I don't know how it happened in my life, but I don't know who gave me that courage, but I got it. I finally got support from my parents to stand strong and to be there, because my mom is my biggest supporter, I would say. Because everywhere, wherever I go, out or wherever in my functions and all, my mom stands with me and she says that, Bala, you are you. Don't change for anyone.
And
You
you
are
are
what you
you.
are.
And you are you,
Yeah.
Bala, and you have a purpose.
And
So we are so glad
and
that
yeah,
we are connecting today and talking to
yeah,
all of us. And you are educating more than ever needed. That many communities
yep,
need. So kudos to you and continue to stay strong. Please continue to stay in touch with all of us. Yeah, we
yeah,
are there for
sure.
you, and I understand where you're coming from, being lost. And the next question is for Sangeeta. It's going to piggyback on what Bala said, Sangeeta, right? How does a survivor cope with trauma that's unique to the individual, right? Listening to their story itself is supportive, right? But what are other helpful responses and behaviors that when a person discloses, that we can offer that support, right? Like you said, through music. But can you talk about what aspects of healing process, either for a rape victim or child sexual abuse, is common, and how do you not just offer in music, but also through your friends group on what can we do as a response?
Yes, thanks, Nazeera. And Bala, I salute your strength. You've
Thank
come
you.
out a winner through all this. Um, so, about the healing process, first of all, the very fact that you're standing by the person and having faith in what the person is saying, I think that is more than half the battle won. Because that person is going through a feeling that maybe it was his fault or her fault, so the very fact that you're showing faith in what the person is saying is gives that person a lot of confidence. Okay, coming back to what Bala said, that even boys go through these kind of sexual assaults. I remember a fellow musician. He once told me that his son had lost all interest in studies, and the musician was very disturbed. He was saying, "I'm working so hard. Musicians are usually freelancers," and he was going all out to give his son a good education. But suddenly something had gone wrong with the son, and few months down the line, he told me that the 12-year-old son had confided that when he was going to his 70-year-old tutor, 70-year-old tutor, he was being made to do things that were not correct. So basically, that guy was being molested, or those improper touches, and that is why he lost all interest in studies. And when he confided in the mother, and mother believed, that is where immediately the whole transition started happening, because the child felt supported. And um, and then counseling, going through counseling, and other than that, I know of a very good technique. I'm sure Asha is a healer, so probably she must have heard about it. Emotional freedom technique. It's called EFT. EFT tapping is also a very, very powerful technique. In fact, a cousin of mine is a healer, and she is an EFT healer. And this is one technique through which you can reprogram your subconscious, because your childhood experiences are all there in your subconscious. Like you said, at 40 you started realizing that there was something was wrong, but you could not pinpoint because it was deep down in the subconscious. So once you address the subconscious, so EFT tapping is one. I use it extensively for every day, like even this fear of corona. Suddenly you get into a state of anxiety, what's going to happen, how long is this going to last, and whether your family will be safe. You see so many deaths. So to eradicate fear, to eradicate whatever you've gone through, your previous traumas, EFT is a very, very powerful technique. I would suggest you to, in fact, incorporate in your programs if possible. Probably the little children will not do, but anybody over 13, 14 can do it. So this is one technique which is very, very powerful to address your subconscious and get rid of whatever a trauma you have. So I think that is another way, and there are many alternative like hypnotherapy, and you can, wherever you can, because it is embedded in the subconscious. So if you can at some point get into your subconscious and heal it from there, that is where you can completely eradicate that experience from your life.
Very nice. Do you want to also touch upon the music? How is that a healing process as well? Music or arts?
Music is like meditation. You know, the moment you are into music, you will forget everything else that is around you. So, if these kids are, given some time especially if they have some inclination towards music and even dance, any art form for that matter, it is like meditation. And once you get into that environment, music therapy, dance therapy, you give them those classes, at least for that particular time period, they will completely forget about what is that. So music and dance are two very very healing processes. Dance is even more because it completely it takes over all your senses. You know, music is mainly hearing and probably some playing or vocal, and dance is involving all your body parts. So it is you go into a trance. So that is another way of healing. Yes, because
So
it is meditative.
yes. So Sangeeta, what about those parents when children do go come and explain to them what has happened with them? They say, "Shh, don't bring it outside."
Then those parents are making the biggest mistake because you have completely ruined one life, because this silence is going to is going to become a big turmoil in that person in the years to come, and it is going to completely subdue the personality of that person. So silence is not the key word is communications. In fact, silence should be taboo. It should be communication, which is encouraged, which should be encouraged.
Very well said. Thank you, Sangeeta, for those words of wisdom. Heather, next to you, I do want to really talk to us about reporting, right? How important reporting is. So, how do we know these cases are reported, and how can a person who is either assaulted or molested or just like what Balaji was saying earlier, they feel comfortable to go ahead and report, right? Is it the responsibility of parents or schools or to teach students about, if anything has happened, how to report to them comfortable? The word is comfortably to come into a zone to report, right? Because children don't often report. Ali mentioned some of the reasons why, because the perpetrator has told them few things. And then, are there any the Victims of Child Abuse Act and the CAPTA Act? What to report, when to report, within how many years to report in order to consider that a valid complaint? All that, and how does one prove a molestation case? So, if you can just talk to us broadly about reporting, why it is important reporting, and who are the best people to go ahead and report to. Heather? You're on mute, yes.
So sorry, it was frozen for a second. So in terms of reporting, so reporting is so important, obviously, and I love what Nicole said earlier, so I'm going to repeat that again. I think we put so much pressure on children to report the abuse to us. And so just like Ali and Nicole were saying, I'm not going to reiterate, but just to echo their comments about equipping children, creating a comfortable environment between adults and children. I mean, and it's as simple as calling body parts what they are, just like everyone has said, so that they are saying things like, this person touched my vagina, instead of, they were playing with my kitty. We've heard that sometimes with children, and that makes it difficult sometimes, even when we think further down the line with prosecutors and prosecuting a case, specifically in the US, is what I'm talking about here. And so I would just echo all of the wonderful things that all of our panelists have said about that. And then I do want to touch a little bit on the uniqueness of child sex trafficking.
Yes,
And
I definitely want you to.
Because
Yes.
with child sexual abuse,
I said I definitely
similar.
want you to.
I mean, obviously, it's a type of child abuse. Okay, great. So it's obviously a type of child sexual abuse, but it's nuanced in that when we've received over 4,500 reports of child sex trafficking victims in the work that we do with Street Grace. And when we talk to these children and we ask them what happened to them, 70% of them, and we're talking about an average age of 14 years old. So we serve females and males, those who identify on the LGBTQI spectrum, those who identify as trans. We serve anyone who is suspected to have been experienced this and been victimized in this way. And 70% of the children that we serve say that they had no idea what was happening to them. They don't realize that they had been trafficked. They don't realize that they've been exploited in any way. And so, of course, it makes it that much more difficult to ask for help, right? And I think a lot of this goes back to what we've already 90% of the survivors that we've served are survivors of early child sexual abuse. And so if they've been abused and have had that violation of boundaries and not understanding what has happened to them, not receiving treatment and care for the trauma that they've endured through that, it makes it really difficult for them to separate what this other person is doing to them as a teenager. And so again, we can't expect for them to know what is happening if we haven't intervened previously, which again is why prevention is key. And I know all of us agree on that. But in terms of reporting specifically for trafficking, we want to teach what to look for and what those warning signs are. And then we'll talk about what reporting methods are available. So in terms of warning signs, we look for, because seduction is such a pathway to entry for these young people, because our young people, specifically in that teenage or pre-teenage years, they're looking for a sense of belonging. They're looking for love. That's a normative need for all of us as people, but especially for this age group. And so we find seduction as a means of older men and women, because 25% of our traffickers here have been female and 70% have been male, are creating relationships, or really fabricating relationships with these young people to instill a feeling of trust, but then also to instill control. And so one of the biggest warning signs we want them to look for is a relationship with a significantly older male or female. And what I'm talking about when I say this is I'm talking about a 14-year-old girl whose boyfriend is 35 years old. We all know that a 35-year-old has no business with a 14-year-old, but to her, that's a significant and real relationship, while in reality, that man is a trafficker and is using this young person. And so we look for that. We've also had our traffickers using branding. This is something that we used to see and then kind of went away, and we're seeing come back a little bit. A lot of times it can be tied to gang trafficking as well. And so branding, basically what I mean by that is tattoos that are marking our young people. Other signs, so runaway and homelessness are big signs, because when we look at the hierarchy of needs, basic needs need to be met by people. And so a lot of our young people are being approached just in terms of survival. So they're out living on the street. If you do this for me, I'll give you a hotel room for a night, or I'll buy you a meal. And when you're starving, and that is your only option, it's not so much a choice as it is a complete lack of choices and vulnerability factors that have led you to that situation. So runaway homelessness, also having an adult in the sex industry. So in Atlanta, where you and myself and Allie and Asha all are, in this metro Atlanta area, there is a huge prevalence of just the sex industry overall. And so again, that almost normalizes that behavior. And so having an adult, an aunt, a sister, what have you, just the prevalence of being close to the sex industry and having that is a big risk factor that we've look for. And then in terms of reporting, it's different in every basically jurisdiction that you're in, which is a real problem with this issue specifically in the United States. But in the United States, we have a national human trafficking hotline through Polaris. And the Polaris Project manages that hotline. But then for Street Grace, we also have our own number, and I'll put it in the chat in the comments, that we utilize specifically, not so much for law enforcement reporting and tips, but for access to services. So if you know a young person that you suspect may have been involved, maybe you're just questioning and you don't know, or you've heard about some warning signs, we want you to go ahead and report it, because we'll dig deeper. We'll work with the systems that are set up. We'll figure out what the situation is with that youth. We'll work with their legal guardian to talk about what services we can provide, how we can talk to that child to determine if he or she has been exploited and victimized, and then to connect them to services.
Very well.
Did I hit all your questions, Nazeera? It was so good.
Yeah, you did, Heather. And I was very deeply involved with your organization at the county level. So I worked very close with Bob Rogers and everyone. So I saw those human traffickers actually speak. And it was very hurtful. And the things that the child trafficker said, as an adult, she said what all they made her do in order to, one or two things stood out, like silly things, like they said they wanted the trafficker to put a diaper on them. So I mean, like, oh my gosh, like, and you took a child and trafficked her to do this to you. So yeah, and I've seen movies, Bollywood movies, Page 3, Highway, some of the movies, just talking about these things that happen and all that. So I did see Asha raise her hand, and Asha, so thank you, Heather. Asha, I was coming to you for the next question, but go ahead with your comment and I'll ask the question.
Yeah, I just wanted to say about the reporting. I've heard people say to me, but what if, and this was about a conversation about a man as a perpetrator, but what if he didn't do it? And my response is, oh, so you'd rather risk that this young child is getting raped daily by this person because you don't want to sully his reputation. And so one of the things Heather said that's so prominent is let the experts figure out what's going on. You're not supposed to know, but are you willing to risk that if you have this suspicion, let somebody look into it? You're not going to destroy, that's an adult. You're not going to destroy their life by reporting something and letting people look into it. It's not like they advertise it all over the place. And those are the experts, because and I got to tell you, I had to report once, and here I am, an advocate who's been doing this for a while. And this particular situation is disclosed to me, and I was a wreck. I was shaking. And I was like, oh my God, now I know what people go through when they're having to report, and it was stressful. And I had looked for a zillion numbers, and I didn't know about, this wasn't for exploitation. I didn't know about Street Grace. I didn't know about the 1-800 for a child, because if you start trying to call local people, you're going to be so confused. So I definitely recommend the numbers that Heather's sharing, or the 1-800 for a child, because they will get you to the right people in the right place. There's also a cyber tip line for the online stuff. If you see something happening online, or some stalker online, and that you just punch in as much information as you have. I've had to report a case for that as well. So it's just take the time, do it. Nobody is in harm's way by doing that, and you may be saving a child.
Sure. And Heather, at a later point, I do want you to talk about all the places that the trafficking happens, especially the hotels, the hotel industry, the hospitality industry, right in front of our eyes during major concerts or games, especially in the Metro Atlanta area, which people are not aware of. But Asha, the question to you is, and Asha, I wondered, when I was in medical school for 5.5 years, and I had very good friends, I had some best friends, and how come I never mentioned to them about any of this? And why is it hitting me in 40 about all this? So didn't I have a good trustable friend I could talk to about this beforehand, and I have to go through this all by myself to figure out? So the most powerful words you can give a victim of sex abuse are, "It's not your fault," right? And usually, as all of you have told, children are not mentally stable or emotionally stable to stop an abuser because they're children. They don't know what's happening to them. And of course, as you mentioned yourself, I think Sangeeta and you, that adults can be manipulated into by clever, manipulative, social skillful people. They can be manipulated. So instead of asking them what's wrong or what's going on, asking something like, "Hey, I've noticed you're not smiling much recently. Is what is happening with you?" Sort of gives a specific ask. My question to you is, what can be done to help and support survivors of sexual assault interpersonally and systemically? And so does the work complicate work with them because of their behaviors? They're just different. They're not a normal person, right? So can you talk about that?
For adults, or, well, let me just touch on two things. I'm not sure which aspect you were. For kids, yeah, my experience is when you approach a kid and say, what's wrong? Are you okay? And you're like, you can't be forceful. I think show up. The best I can do is show up as a safe adult, ongoing, and just routinely, like Namrata was talking about, at risk, identifying at risk people, kids that seem to not necessarily have the strong family union and constant attention and that sort of thing. There are some extra risk factors there, and they have trauma-informed care, trauma-informed curriculum and everything in the schools that I hope takes off. But just being a safe adult, not pushing them, just saying, "Hey, how you doing? Is everything okay?" And even if they don't want to talk, so what? Check in with them again in a week, in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, and just keep showing up gently, because nobody's going to talk if they're pushed, because you're just another violator. You're pushing yourself on them, and they don't know you. They don't feel safe. They have to get to know you. So I think being genuine and just caring and not being pushy. For adults, one of the things you said I will challenge, in that, yes, we have unique triggers, trust, and there are definitely wounds, and I agree with, I think Sangeeta was saying, subconscious stuff is very subconscious. There's multiple ways that I think there's the conscious aspect, the subconscious aspect, and the trauma stored in the body at a cellular level. And I do believe that. So you have all those things going on. I don't want to say that we're not normal people. My whole mission is to say we are normal people. Everybody has something. They have their baggage, whatever it is. This happens to be ours. And it is problematic because, I think, primarily because of religion. And as Vala was talking, ultra-conservatism, that's like, we can't say the word sex. We can't talk. In my house, there was no, I wasn't even taught about my period or tampons or pads or anything like that. I was just like, a little bit, but my mom was so ultra conservative that I had nobody. So with my son, and so I'm kind of tying these together, but with my son, I just made a point that we talked about whatever, and we would laugh, and I'd say, "So what'd you learn in health class today?" And he would be like, "Mom, they showed us but he knew that he could talk about anything with me, because even just to get him interested in his studies, because he struggled with school a little bit when he was younger, I'd let him write crazy poems about, this is probably embarrassing, but chopping people up and putting them in the freezer, and it was that, it would be any little, he'd turn something into some dramatic whatever. But if I support him along the way and let him be creative and know that this is whatever it takes, creative outlet, then I was the expert. And so he would ask me things. And so I think that is what it looks like to be a safe adult. You let them be them, and then you might say, well, you probably don't want to say this, but whatever. So for children, I think that that's what I could do. For adults, the whole point of my site is that we are normal people, and we should be treated like everybody else, but we have to be mindful of our own triggers, our own baggage, our own flaws, trust, and body boundaries. And that extends into just the ability to say no to anything. It could be volunteer work, could be anything. But it's all the same stuff that everybody else uses. It's just that we have to be mindful of what's specific to us. So again, just showing up and being kind at the best we can, and knowing that everybody has bad days, and not treating people like outcasts. And if you're a survivor and you have never spoken to anybody, I have people that will say, I've never told anyone this. But like Bala, I found my healing in speaking out and being public. And that changed my life. Absolutely. And the music and the processing and embracing it and telling my family, I got to tell you, my dad's first response was, well, this is, sorry, Dad, I hope you're not watching. Well, this is the first I've heard of it. And if I was you, I would never tell anyone, or it will ruin your music career. And you know what? That was exactly what I needed to hear, because my answer was, oh, you watch me. He got me going, and I was going to tell. And being public, and I don't need to share all the details, but I need to say that it happens, and I need to do something about it, and enlist musicians. And so I think just showing up, and when somebody discloses to you, you don't have to have an answer. You just need to say, I hear you. And I know some of what you're going through. I've been through this, and we're not alone. It's not your fault, and we're with you, because they're not necessarily looking for answers unless they ask questions. And then you can certainly say, like Sangeeta said, I found EFT. EFT works great for people, and I use other things. And I do want to mention really quickly. This, you might be asking this later, but you mentioned hypnotherapy. I do not recommend regular hypnotherapy personally, because it's not an interactive process that allows the person to heal from the inside out. It's kind of like putting things on top. And for me, I don't find that that's a winning solution. But if somebody's interested in hypnotherapy, I like alchemical hypnotherapy, because it's self-directed by the client with somebody facilitating. And what it does is it lets things come up and process and imagery and whatever else. And it helps to reframe and transition, so that's not that you don't think it didn't happen, but that you have a new viewpoint. And I do find that is more helpful, in my opinion, but everything works differently for different people.
Very well said, Asha. We are normal people. Yeah, so I'm going to reaffirm we are normal people, and definitely. And I've had instances where people just go numb when I've talked about it. Even a significant other, they just didn't know how to respond or what to say. But till today, I've just shut up. I mean, these are just some of the things happening, and I just want to, as we are talking brutally honest here in the screen, I'm just not able to allow anyone into my life. And if I see there's love, the more I push them away, because there's no trust. So I'm fine with solitude, but I'm healing. 3 years ago, I would literally scream and cry. But now look, I'm just holding tears when I speak about it. So the healing has been done. It's a continuous process. There's no destination. Healing has happened. She's fine. Everything is fine. No, it'll continue to happen. But definitely, I found my healing in putting it out in public and saying out what happened, Asha. So I agree with you. I just don't want people to take it to the grave, suffering in silence the whole life. That's the worst thing that they could happen. Yes, go ahead, Ali.
How much have you shared with your daughters about what happened to you?
Oh my gosh, Ali, I remember I did a video about it, and I shared the video with them, and Rossi still says you're one of the strongest women I know in this world. So did they know? And that's when they agreed to come to your Revved Up Kids program. They've taken the Johns Creek Police Department program as well. So yeah. No, they know, and they're very cautious and particular about how I feel, what my triggers are sometimes. Is that what you wanted to know, Ali? Okay, sounds good. So I want to play the video. I won't be broken now, just for 2 minutes, if that's okay, just for before we go into the next session, starting with Ali and Nicole. That's the question I have for you all. So hopefully you all can see it. So I'm gonna play it. Hold on. I'm thinking the panelists might not be able to see it, but let's see.
Shadows haunt me again tonight,
So look,
churning my insides. Shadows haunt me again tonight, turning my insides. Why do I feel this way? I don't understand. Did I deserve that? I don't understand. I feel so broken. Could this pain go away? Could I feel whole again? Could I ever live again? Oh, I feel broken. Could this pain go away? Could I feel whole again? Could I ever live again? Oh, I feel broken. Raging blood in every vein like a flickering flame. Is it me they will blame? Tears streaming from my eyes, he ignores all my cries. Who told him he had the right? I'm broken, 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 broken. Where is the regret? How does he live like that? What should I do now? To live or to be dead? I feel so broken. Could this pain go away? Could I feel whole again? Could I ever live again? Oh, I feel so broken. But enough is enough. Yes, enough is enough. It is time that you see. But enough is enough. It is time that you see you can no longer hurt me. No one should bear such a pain. All this is so insane. Why can't they be human? The screams and the sorrow will soon fade away. Don't ever think that I'll let you walk away. I won't be broken. Let this pain go away. Let me feel whole again. Yes, let me live again. No, I won't be broken. Let this pain go
so the viewers were able to watch it. We're back, and Sangeeta, a great job on the composing of the music along with your co-composers. So good job. Go to the question that I have for Ali and Nicole. I want you all to tag team on this one. And we talked about it very briefly earlier. So when your clients have told you, or indirectly or directly, about sexual assault, what do they seem to be looking for, or why do they think they tell you, and what kind of tangible support are they looking for? Emotional support are they looking for? Why do you think has helped them feel safe telling you about their experience, right? Why did they open up to you, and what would your reaction be to someone who disclosed to you that they were raped? How do you respond to them? And go ahead.
Nicole, first.
There's a lot there. I'll tag team after you, because I think our stuff will be the same.
Yeah, and we have only had very few direct disclosures from children, and our system is set up where in the state of Georgia, we have mandatory reporting laws for all youth-serving adults. So we have a system in place where we work with whatever organization where we're providing the training, and we set up supports. So if we're in a school, we are having conversations with the school counselors or social workers in advance of providing the training. And if we do receive a disclosure, they are there to provide support to that child. We are doing our duty and making our report as mandated reporters, but we are not the people that are providing support to those victims. I do a lot of speeches to local civic groups and different groups of adults. And very, very often adults will come up to me after the speech and disclose to me about their childhood sexual abuse. I've had some people who I've been the first person that they've ever said it out loud to. And usually they're disclosing to me because they're grateful for the work that we're doing to protect children, and also because they feel a level of comfort. Because part of my speech is, a lot of people, because we do what we do, they tell us their stories. And so I think they feel like, okay, here's a person that's used to hearing these stories. I can go tell this person my story. And I don't know that they're looking for anything from me except validation and just a sense of, I feel your pain and I'm so sorry this happened to you. Sometimes they're asking me if I have any resources. And of course we do have, therapeutic referral organizations that we, supply that information. But mostly it's just, I'm ready for somebody to hear this, and I'm the one that's there to listen.
Great, awesome. Go ahead, Nicole.
And I'll add to that. So thank you, Ali. So I think and Ali mentioned this, so mandatory reporters, it is state by state. And I would make the argument that all adults should be mandatory reporters. And so I think further to what Heather and other panelists have shared, I think that it's not your job to substantiate the claim. It is not your job to solve this report, and it's not your job to come swoop in as Superman or Superwoman. I think the most courageous thing you can do when you have a disclosure is to first say, I believe you, and to listen. I think that's the most important. I think that for most survivors, it takes about 7 times before they even feel comfortable to disclose. So the amount of courage and fear that it takes to disclose to anyone, particularly, as you're sharing, someone who you don't know can be huge. And so I think the answer would be, I believe you. There are so many myths that children or adults make this up, and the statistics are not there. This is trauma. People do not feel comfortable sharing trauma. I think the other thing that I'd like to say, Heather and I have shared numbers for NCMEC. We've shared the Child Help Hotline. There are numerous numbers by state that I think it's important that our audience and listeners, that they are just aware of these hotlines. But at the end of the day, calling the police, it is a crisis, and there are people who are trained, social workers, case managers, police, who it's their job within 48 hours to substantiate that claim and make the next steps. So whether you know or you don't know, you have an obligation to say, I suspect, and it can be completely anonymous. I think that's really important for people to know. I think there's often a fear, particularly if it's within your community, that, you know, someone's going to say, Nicole said that she thinks this. No, it's completely anonymous. The second is, for many years, Childhood has supported child advocacy centers, and we believe that this is so important. Child advocacy centers, there are over 900 in the United States. There are also international centers. In Germany, we have Barnehus, which is the same, and these are centers where a child will disclose abuse, and they will meet with a forensic interviewer who is trained to ask those questions. The beauty of the child advocacy centers is that the child only has to disclose once. So behind them, in a black, you know, sort of concealed, you know, window, you'll have the district attorneys, pediatricians, police, law enforcement. And this is so important because we know that it is re-traumatizing and triggering to constantly tell your story. We know that there are some vulnerabilities related to income as well. So you're traveling, and children, you know, they want to make the adults in their lives happy. And so it's not that children lie or make up what happened. It's oftentimes that they want this validation and they don't want people to be upset. And it can be very upsetting to share that with the non-offending family member or adult who is hurt that their child is hurting. So they tell this story, they tell, you know, their experience, and any questions that are needed from sort of the DA or even the pediatricians are put in the forensic interviewer's ear, and they are trained. I think the beauty of that system, one, is that they're only telling the story once. To me, I think what is extremely valuable is the work that happens after disclosure. I'll give you an example from one of the child advocacy centers that we've supported. Is a young girl, her name is obviously changed, we'll call her Charisma because she was very charismatic. And she was 4 years old. She was sitting in the child advocacy center, and she had kind of like, you know, the sort of the grandma bags, handbags. And she said, you know, something bad really happened to me, and now I have to be an old lady. And so she didn't play with any of these toys. When you walk into child advocacy centers, it is completely developmentally appropriate, bright colors, really helping children heal. And she met with her forensic interviewer. And at this child advocacy center, Safe Horizons, one of the things that Childhood USA supports is the counseling post-disclosure, not only for the child, but for the family, which is really important about reintegration and moving. And so, you know, she was able to ask the pediatrician questions about, like, is she an adult? What will happen? And I want to make a small point in here and say that children are incredibly resilient. Bodies are incredibly resilient. And so I think if a child discloses to you, please note that it may be months or years after this abuse, and it may not be seen, but the body holds the score. But she was able to ask these questions to the pediatrician about being an adult. And then maybe 5 minutes later, there was just a whiz of a child running in, touching everything, right? And that was Charisma, right? Because she realized, talking to a pediatrician, that she got to be a 4-year-old again. And that to me is what resiliency is. That to me is what becoming a survivor is about that there's a next step. And so I think that we all have an obligation to listen, to validate or affirm. And then we also need to give our survivors the space to survive and to thrive. And that thriving is nonlinear, but I think that survivorship looks like many different things. And being a survivor, there are survivors like Balaji who shared their story with us today so courageously, Nazeera, speaking about it, advocating. But I would also like to take a moment for people who survive by what? One, waking up every morning when it's not that easy to do that, to seek out counseling and help, to being that safe adult, and they may never share their story, and that's not their obligation. So I just think it's really important that in this conversation about thriving and resiliency, just as in life, there are many different ways to do this, and we should be proud of that. So so those are some of my thoughts.
Awesome, great, thank you. Ali, you had your hand up.
I just wanted to add one more thing. When we talk to parents, we try to arm them with, you know, what do I do if my child actually discloses sexual abuse to me? And one of the things that we really try to drive home is, oh my goodness, you have to remain calm. You have to be the listener in that moment. You're going to have a million questions running through your head, and you're going to want to ask all of them. And you cannot do that because there's such a risk that you will add to the trauma by what you say in that moment. Especially if you feel like you've done a good job helping them, you know, teaching them that you're allowed to say no and this is inappropriate, and, you know, all of those things that you think you've been saying correctly, and then it still happens. One of your first questions is going to be, well, wait a minute, what about all of our conversations? And then you're putting that blame on your child for somebody else's crime against them. So we just always say, zip it up, be the listener, ask them what they need from you in that moment. And then when you have time away from your child, you call the professionals and you get advice on what the next steps need to be. You do not try to work through this situation on your own.
Wow,
And I'm so
guys are
sorry,
really
tag team,
yeah.
and I will stop. But the one thing that I just keep thinking about, Ali, could not agree with you more. Everything you're saying, like zip it up, be quiet, and listen. But one, we have audience members here who are survivors themselves, and I think it's really important to talk about the fact that the shame and the guilt that you may be feeling is not yours to own. And I think that's very, very important. Something has happened to you. There was not something you were wearing. There was not something you did. And there's not something that is lacking in you. The other point is that you may have believed or had a relationship with this person and they abused your trust. And I think sometimes we'll say things in workshops, and I know not in this group because everyone here is phenomenal. But, you know, there's sometimes when we, even as parents doing the very best we can, we might say, you know, don't let that happen to you, or that shouldn't happen to you. But guess what? If that is currently happening to you, you feel this sense of shame. There's something wrong. How did I do this? So I just really want to reiterate, like, there is nothing you could have done, and it is not your shame to hold. That is not your burden. And everyone on this panel is supportive and will happily direct you to resources, but just, it's not a shame.
Very well said. Yeah, thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Balaji and Namrata. We really have to appreciate you because I think it's beyond 10:30 now in India, but you're still sitting here. The question is geared towards Balaji, Namrata, Asha, and Heather, and Sangeeta as well. If you can answer briefly this whole question, because it's very important. We need to understand the perspective. So we all agreed through our talks till now that a majority of perpetrators are male and victims female, but abusers are both male and female, and victims are both male and female. So when we think of sex abuse, we can say male, female, 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 male, or male, male situations, right? My question is, why do people victimize? Yeah, but Balaji, starting with you, and Namrata, then Asha and Heather and Sangeeta, please follow. Let's talk about abuses of power and culture. Yeah, and I want Heather and Asha to talk about the US side, and Sangeeta, Namrata, and Balaji to talk about the Indian version, which I'm thinking also applies to most of the South Asian countries. Males, the power. So why do males feel, and just because it's predominant, Balaji, that's I'm asking, in what way do men think they hold the power in the US or in India or in the world? And you know, where do they learn to devalue and disrespect girls and women? Balaji, please unmute.
When it comes to the male side, I think, of course, people don't want to talk about it. As I said, they are more shy because they feel that it keeps happening to girls, and that's where I feel that some, like as I said, like it's me, but there are many people out there who still doesn't want to talk about it. So few days back, I remember I was talking to one of my school mate. He was my junior, and I was talking to him, and he saw my TED talk and other talks and all, and he just said that even I have gone through child sexual abuse, but when I used to see him in school, he used to be altogether a different person, like a happy go person, I would say. But somewhere, not everyone would be the same, but in my case, I always used to be this shy child, who never used to talk. So most of the time, what I used to do is in my school days, I never used to talk to my parents. All I would do is come home, lock myself in a room, and cry about it, like no, why it's happening to me. And the moment I decide, okay, I want to speak about it, then I have this thing going on in my mind that okay, I'll lose people, maybe parents also will stop talking to me. But now I realize how much important was it, for me to talk to parents. So coming to this guy who used to be in my school, I mean, so he also, I mean, he's also from the LGBTQ community, and he has also gone through the same what I did. And he spoke to me. He said that, can I speak to you? And it came as a shock to me. A person who was so lively, her person used to be so lively than anyone else in the school. Even that person has gone through, but that person, I mean, he said that he hid his feelings because didn't want to come out to his parents because he's still in closet. Maybe for me, I got that push from my parents, I would say. I got that push from people like you who are there in the panel, to go and to be who I am. Maybe that person, my schoolmate, didn't get that push because he also said that, somewhere he didn't decide. He was not able to decide, what he was going through. Especially in my case, I mean, how it started. My neighbor, I was very fond of chocolates, and I was like, I could do anything for chocolates. So, he used to call me to his house, and he was married, and he used to do so many things out there. And one day, I mean, that time also in class 10th, I had that, sensation, okay, fine, this is something wrong. I should say a no, I think. Because that time, of course, being a child, you would not see any difference between a yes or a no. So, or a wrong or right things happening in your life, So that time I thought, okay, something wrong is happening to me and I should stop that, And one day, I don't know, I finally got that, spirit, and I was like, I pushed him and I came back to my house. And then I started getting threatening calls from him that, if you're going to tell this outside, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill your family. This is how I used to face. But the same thing he also faced, but he kept doing it. I mean, uh, he was in that situation where he was helpless because his own family members, his own relatives has done that to him. Like in my case also it happened, but somewhere, as I said, and when it comes to us, when it comes to men, they are very shy because people don't want to believe us. Like as I gave this example of police guy, he couldn't believe us. Even my parents, when I was about to tell to my mom, something like this, she said, no, it's because of heat, that's why you're bleeding. But they never thought they didn't kind of get in depth, like what's the reason of that bleeding. I had that pain. I wanted to tell to so many people, but somewhere I didn't get that support. So men, I think high time. I think we should also, these things should also get highlighted from the men's perspective. What all has been happening. So more men, I think, more than counseling or anything else, more men should come out and share their sexual abuse journey. Women are doing it. Yes, that's a very good thing. Rape, women rape are being discussed more, but men rape should be also discussed more. But people should not be in this dilemma. How come men rape can happen? This police guy literally asked me this question, Nazeera. I was shocked. There were so many other guys sitting. I was like, how come someone rape a guy? I mean, I have only heard about someone raping a girl, but how come someone can have sex with a boy? This is what he asked, and I'm sorry, I didn't have any answers for him. I was helpless. All I was doing was crying. I was helpless. Those people who did, who hit me on my back and who, fled. They were roaming around. They are still roaming around like free birds. People who abused me, they are still roaming around like free birds. But people are still blaming me. They are saying
Sure.
that you must have done something. There is a mistake from your end because see the way you are dressed up. You are wearing lipstick. You are wearing kajal. Still in India, Nazeera, it's a dilemma. Like this gender fluidity it's a dilemma. I'm saying now this gender foundations are still there in our country, which is
Definitely.
the myth which needs to be broken. So that's where the education and awareness comes in, where we need to tell people that if women can go through this, even men can go through this, and men are supposed to talk about it. We can't be shy. We can't be sitting around. So until unless we talk about it, people won't know about it.
Definitely.
There are many people like me who doesn't want to come out to their parents and tell. Like when I asked this guy who's from my school, I said, please go and tell your parents. He was like, no, they will kill me. That's the perspective people have. Okay, you can't tell. Okay, they can do anything to please society, but they can't do anything to please their child. That's the mentality the Indian parents carry. I'm sorry, no offense, but that's what happening in our country. They will do anything which society says, anything. My very own cousin who wanted to come out, who's also gender fluid like me, he literally got thrashed, Nazeera, just because he was applying cosmetics. He got thrashed by his parents. So I feel sorry for parents. I feel sorry for those people who are actually going through this, men especially, and who are not able to come out. So somewhere, more awareness programs should be designed, especially for men to come out and speak. Like as Namrata said, or like Asha, whoever, they said that we have so many programs for women or whatever child, but there should be more awareness programs for men also. And we should, because we don't look at the other side of it, because we are just seeing one side of it. We are not
Sure.
seeing gender is a wide spectrum. There are many other genders who exist. People don't
Definitely.
talk about the sexual assault happened with transgenders. So
Sure.
so awareness program should be designed for each and every gender, irrespective of whatever they are, whether they are gays, lesbian, bisexuals, intersex, asexual, transgenders, whoever it is, or gender fluid. So
Very
yeah.
well said. Very well said, Balaji. Very good points noted for the future awareness programs as well. And thank you for bringing your heart out into this
Thank you.
program as well. Asha, I'll go next with you and then Namrata. Asha, also when you respond to the same thing, please also mention how is masculinity related to the sexual violence and how is gender related to sexual violence.
I think Bala hit it on the head when he said that when there's no awareness at some level, no matter how hard we all work and we're committed, but the people that are paying attention are people that have been touched by it or something has happened to make them an advocate. In my experience, at least in most cases, it's not the general population of Jill and Jack on the street. So I think all of those efforts are important, but when it comes to our voices as survivors, I think it's really important that if we can find the courage and trust the process, and I'm not saying blab it to anybody on the street, but when topics come up or you're in a conversation and it's appropriate, I think for me, that has been the most healing thing that has happened to me is to speak up and speak out and become an advocate. Vala says, why, I don't know what happened, but, I believe in God and I feel like I have this purpose. Purpose makes people heal, and when you're making a difference, it helps you to heal. And I think we all know the silence is the enemy. All abuses against children are abuses of power and position, because everyone is more powerful than a child. and you're taught to listen to your elders and obey and this and that. And so all abuses are positions of influence. And then, of course, you've got the extra influence. It's the elder in the church. It's the teacher that everyone loves at school. Well, of course they love him. They make, or her, they make a point to embed themselves in the community in a way that, oh, well, I'll help out. You know, I know you're really busy. They seem like the most trusting people. It's not the creepy guy on the corner. It's the person that you've come to rely on and that you trust the most, and that your child looks like, oh, I don't want to go there, or they have a temper tantrum, or whatever. And in terms of, male, female, and all of the gender identities, all of the gamut, like there is a whole gamut. Is that relevant? I guess in a little bit of a way, it's relevant because girls tend to be more on the statistics. But I think there is a big disservice, especially in the United States, of toxic masculinity. And we teach our kids, don't cry, you have to buck up, you have to do this, you have to be strong, you can't do that. This doesn't happen to boys. And that is a huge, huge disservice, because, we're being the energy person there. It's time to integrate our masculine and our feminine. It's time to empower our kids and ourselves to be able to speak up and step forward, no matter what body parts we have or how we identify. It's the same hurt and the same wounds. The question is, am I going to be able to find the resources? And I don't think, and nobody on this panel is from NASCA, but there is an organization called NASCA, NAASCA, National Association of Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, and they do also focus on child sexual abuse. They do have a directory for support organizations, and some of them are specifically for gay or for men or for whatever the gamut is. So you can search through that and find something that maybe speaks to you either online or locally, because a group like that is really important.
Very nice. Thank you, Asha. Nicole, I see your hand raised. No? Okay. Namrata and then Sangeeta. The original question also was how is masculinity related to sexual violence, Namrata, and rape culture? Yeah. Does a patriarchal system allow that to happen? And where did men learn to devalue and devalue women?
So it's very well starts from the moment we are born. Like I remember when my my twins were born, they were wrapped in a blue blanket and they were given to me. So they identified blue as the color of male and pink is the color of female. So when they grow old, slowly by slowly, they are not allowed to play with dolls. But I insisted my twins play with dolls. That's separate, different from me. But I've seen parents opting for gender specific toys. And then comes in food, like in our Indian society, in our houses, like when we grow up, we always used to see the other gender, like like the masculine gender, always getting a bigger piece of meat or fish, maybe uh, some extra care which we didn't receive. And when we asked our mothers and aunts for this, like, why is this so? They never had a answer. They always had told us ki they are earning members and they are more worthy of that, so they should get that. They need that for their body. So we were not told. We were trained like that. And after, like in Indian society, after marriage also you see many kind of inequality in many homes. So these are the way we things are brought up here. Like we grow up like this in a very much gendered environment. Bala will know this, I think, and Sangeeta will also know this, how our parents have raised the brothers and how parents have raised the sisters. There is always a clear marked demarcation. We can't go out at night. They can do whatever they feel like with their life, but there are restrictions for us. So with these things, if a boy child witnesses this from the very beginning, what will he think of the other members in the family? he will learn the same way that we are used to get the better things in our food. We should get the better things in other aspects also. So they will learn that I will always get the best, and my sister will always get the next best, not the best. So he will learn that way. So when this boy grows up, and this boy also sees his mother also that way, oppressed and getting the less, and getting like not getting whatever she wants, always sacrificing, compromising. Those are the so-called virtue of married Indian women. I and I don't know of other parts of the world. So these things a boy grow up seeing. So they expect the same thing from their would be from their better half also. So these are the small things where masculinity seeps in, and a boy is told like you are not supposed to cry, you are not supposed to feel gentle. All this our parents learn them whenever kids kids do not know all this. Okay, so kids scream or cry. I have heard many family members of mine telling them, "Ki you are boys, why are you crying? Boys are not supposed to cry." So these things, and whenever they cry, they compare themselves with like that. Like many people tell them ki ladkiyon jaisa ro raha hai, like you are crying like a girl. Why are you doing like this? You should behave like a boy. So the society has a very clear understanding. A boy should behave like this, a girl should behave like this, a boy should get like this, and girl should get like this. So this is ingrained, and this is being passed on from generations after generations. So now I think like lots of organizations have come up who are doing like path breaking works. They are like doing awareness sessions, workshops, and to break this stereotypes first of all, to break the stereotypes in the heads of the parents, and to create awareness among them, to treat everybody equally, to remove this masculinity which is existing in our society. So I think this is the like this is a breeding point where the masculinity starts. If you can end it at the beginning, you pick gender inclusive toys for your boys, you allow them to cry, you allow them to be gentle, you give the freedom to them to be whatever they want, and you do a gender neutral behavior with other members of the family as well, because kids learn as they see. So
Definitely.
this will bring about a change in the family first of all, then from the family it goes to the community, then the society, and slowly by slowly we will see a change.
Very well said. Thank you, Namrata. Sangeeta, do you want to follow up on the rape culture?
Sorry.
So hold on. My question to you was, Sangeeta, do you want to follow up on the question I asked previously about the patriarchal society and why men feel the power and the masculinity to devalue and disrespect women?
Yeah, I think Namrata has kind of covered all the points, and it is definitely to do with the power dynamics. You
Yes,
know, the toxic masculinity, as Asha and Nicole I think mentioned, is very much prevalent in India also. So there is a pressure on boys to always seem to be powerful, and so that is again, I think that is one reason why, and another reason, like Namrata said, that women are treated in a secondary as a secondary sex, and though it did not happen in my household, but yeah, I have seen it all around me. India in general is very patriarchal, and so if the house help, like we have house help in India, if she would take a leave, then the guy would just sit and eat, and the girl would cook, and she would do the dishes and the brooming and sweeping and everything. So it is generally the trend in all Indian households that men are treated differently. So I guess that gives them a feeling of power, and that they can get away with whatever they want to do, because women, for them, they do not respect women because that is how they have been brought up. So I think that is, yeah, one of the main reasons why they think that women don't have a say or in sexual matters also. Also, I would like to add another point is that India has been sexually a very suppressed society. we don't talk about sex, and nobody talks about sex. So when you suppress something, it becomes even more volatile. And the child, especially in the family, is the most vulnerable member where the men can attack. So like in the West, even here, the most of the sexual abuses of children are happening within the family members or within the trusted members, because here even dating is very new concept. It started happening now, that too in the bigger cities. Otherwise, it was an arranged marriage, and you had to wait till, let's say, you were about 25 years. A man had to wait till about 25 to have his first experience of sex. So, I mean, if you're going to wait for so long, then obviously somewhere that suppression is going to come out. And that is where it was, I think, the child sexual abuse was happening. That is another reason why it is happening.
Definitely a valid reason. For the next 20 seconds, 25 seconds, please let's give the closing comments. And then Ali, right after all of us give the closing comments, I'm going to play the revved up video. And then I would like to thank all of you for joining us right after your closing comments. And then we'll end it up with the video that Ali's organization created. Does that sound like a plan? And we're exactly at 1. We were supposed to end at 1. So thank you so much. 20-second closing comments starting with Nicole, please.
Just want to say thank you, and that child sexual abuse is preventable, and we all have a role to play.
Thank you, Nicole. Ali? Ali, you're on mute.
Am I frozen? I feel like I'm frozen.
You're fine now.
Yeah, I really appreciate this group. It's been a great morning of conversation, and Nazeera participated in the video that she's going to show. So thank you for that, Nazeera.
Thank you, Ali. Balaji? You're on mute. Balaji likes to speak on mute.
Sorry. I just want to say thank you, and I want to add one thing to everyone out there who are struggling to come out of their closet, just to say that your gender doesn't matter, your spirit matters, your soul matters. Very important. And be yourself. That's all.
Very well said, Balaji. Thank you. Yes. Go ahead, Namrata.
Thank you for this wonderful session, and it's good to see you, so many of you working in the same space. And yes, I could learn so many things from you, and surely I will tell my team members about this wonderful discussion, and they are absolutely online and listening to you all. Thanks for the panel. Thanks. Thank you very much, Nazeera, for inviting.
Thank you, Namrata. And please, you have all of our emails. Do stay in touch and reach out to us. Let's do the global campaign. One whole wish I want is to eliminate child sexual abuse from the world, right? Go ahead, Asha.
Just first, thank you so much for inviting me, Nazeera. It was a joy to be here with you and seeing so many people active. And for people watching and listening, I agree with Nicole. It's on all of us to use our voices and to speak up. If you see something, say something. And just be present, be mindful, and share this information that you've learned with your neighbors, your relatives, your friends about how to protect their kids, because they don't know.
Thank you. Well said, Asha. Sangeeta, I know Heather dropped out. Maybe she's having a bad connection, but we'll take good vibes from her and her organization as well. Go ahead, Sangeeta.
Yeah, I just want to thank you all. It has been a very humbling experience to see, and listen to what all you've been doing. Thank you so much. Thank you for contributing to society.
Thank you, all of you, listeners and viewers. Thank you for joining us on a Sunday morning. It has been emotional at times, and we did place a disclaimer in the beginning that one thing I've learned is, Asha made me reaffirm today, we are all normal people, but it's tough sometimes, but we are here, and smiling and educating and increasing awareness, and you all have to do your part as well in preventing a child to lose their childhood. Sometimes I'm jumping the ropes now and doing the swings and Why, I'm doing all my childhood things now, so it's never too late. It's fine. It's just that you have to keep going, being strong. So thank you again. Our next month topic is on autism, and definitely join us. Visit our website for upcoming sessions as well, chaiandjustchat.com. And thank you again, all of you panelists. I really adore and admire you. I'll definitely be catching up with you on WhatsApp from Indian numbers, or here texts and emails. So now let's place so thank you all. You all can stay back and listen to the video, or you're welcome to leave depending, but I want to make sure we play this video as well. So thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. Yeah. Have a good rest of the morning. Yes.
I am Bella, and I'm a survivor.
I am Revved Up Kid, mom and sponsor.
I'm a mom and I'm an educator, and I'm a true believer in Revved Up Kids.
We founded Revved Up Kids with a singular purpose. Our focus is protecting children and teenagers from sexual abuse and exploitation. More than 1 in 10 children being sexually abused before their 18th birthday. The statistics speak volumes.
Child sexual abuse knows no socioeconomic boundary. It doesn't discriminate. It's all children, all races, all genders. They're all at risk.
Victims never fully recover. That moment changes a child.
My first instance of sexual assault happened when I was 14. I had been groomed and abused emotionally and sexually. I am still going through a lot. Through Revved Up Kids, I've been able to take the intentional time to really examine what I've gone through and how I'm healing and where I still have room to grow.
Any program that can help you make it not a taboo, and let's discuss this and let's make sure we're all safe. Let's make sure our kids are safe. That's where you seek programs like Revved Up Kids, which will help you to prevent rather than cure or treat the complications. For me, it took me almost into my 40s to talk about it in the open of what happened. I trusted the family member who was supposed to be a significant figure in our family to look after us. Even though it was six years old, you feel the shame, but you don't know because you can't speak about it. Programs like Revved Up Kids help you create that comfortable space. I'm glad my daughters have become strong because of this program.
I think that sexual abuse is hard for parents to talk about with their children out of fear. Revved Up Kids has programs to support and protect and aid our families and our community. They provide education for families and for our schools to make sure that they understand how to best support students who are dealing with sexual predators, or just understanding how to protect themselves from that, as well as other things that could be detrimental to our kids.
I learned a lot from Revved Up Kids, and I still use what I learned nearly every day.
Being in college currently, though we took these courses a couple years ago, the knowledge remains because it's now very ingrained into us for the sake of our own safety and protection. I consider the skills that I learned here as a tool belt, where you don't have to use all your tools at all times, but it gives me peace of mind to know that they're available when I need them. And it's made me more sure of myself and confident of my abilities in both friendships and intimate relationships as well.
There's kind of mental skills, and then there's physical skills. A lot of what you need to learn is about discerning a good relationship from a bad one. And then there's also skills about what to do if someone encounters you to a party and pushes you up against a wall, and we learned how to break out of those situations.
I know that we need more organizations like Revved Up Kids. I know that as a mom, that I take relationships very seriously when I come into contact with people that want to be in my children's lives because of Revved Up Kids, because of the conversations that I've had with Allie. What they do is obviously very personal to me as a survivor. If we can come together as businesses and support organizations like Revved Up Kids, what we are doing is supporting and creating overall better community for generations to come, and that's Revved Up Kids.
Donations are absolutely making a difference. Look at all of what Revved Up Kids, do a Google search of Revved Up Kids for what is today and see how long Allie and David have been doing this. Think about that child who actually is not in the best conditions, might be in a very poverty type of situation, a scenario, not able to afford the type of training. It's about making a difference, and when you pass that on, you're like the butterfly effect.
Our trainings begin with children as young as 5 years old. Everything that we do has a component of being smart. Then there's the element of being strong. If you need to defend yourself to get away from this person, we're going to teach you how to do that. If you can be smart and you can be strong, you can stay safe. Go to the Revved Up Kids website, go to our programs page. There's a lot of information about all of our programs.
And if you're inspired in other ways, maybe you don't have a child that needs training immediately, please think about helping us make Revved Up Kids training available to all children. We can do that with your donations. Again, visit our website, learn more, and please reach out.
Awesome, guys. You all stayed. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Please have a good lunch and please have a good night, Balaji and Namrata. I really love all of you for what you do. And let's create that world that we are all dreaming of, eliminating child sexual abuse. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Bye-bye.